Hey everyone, Alex Telander here, and welcome to the Ostium Sagas. Now, if you're enjoying this series and want more right away, I just wanted to mention that you can get them on our Ostium Network Patreon at patreon.com/ostiumpodcast. By becoming a supporter at any level, you'll instantly get access to the next 15 episodes in the series. So that's on our Patreon at patreon.com/ostiumpodcast. Now, I'd just like to thank our 5 most recent patrons for supporting the Ostium Network. Thank you to Death to Komatsu, Daryl Williamson, Descripticon, Virginia Green, and Talon for all your support. We really appreciate it. And now let's get started with the next chapter of the Ostium Sagas. The Ostium Sagas. Saga 2, 1666. Part 13. The date I chose to return was the 7th of June, 1753, the man said. Also, his name is Robert. I asked if that was because it was the opening of the British Museum. He said yes, precisely. An incredible historical place that houses some of the world's most beautiful and important objects in all of history. And to be able to be there on opening day and witness it in all its splendor. What about the fact that most of the articles have been stolen from their original owners from all over the world? I asked. He grew red in the cheeks, knowing exactly what I was getting at. Yes, he said, you are completely correct. However, at the opening of the British Museum, there were far fewer stolen items, and more British items that rightfully belonged here. It would not be until the height of the swollen, infectious British Empire that so many unique items would be stolen from their original countries, whether clandestinely or by force. These were all his words. I already knew this about the British Museum, but I just wanted to make sure he did. When they asked me how long I wanted to stay, he said, I didn't really know how to answer. You see, I was particularly interested in charting the discoveries, and then tracking how they were brought to the museum and then installed, followed by their grand unveiling. Again, my focus was on these items that were specific to the British Isles. Being English, since I was a young boy, I have always been absolutely fascinated by historical items. In my mind, I wanted to spend a long time here if possible. In my mind, it would be years. When they suggested 5, 10, or even 15 years, I was over the moon. I said yes, wholeheartedly, as long as possible. At that point, Robert said, I should have paid studious attention to their instant smiles. They had appeared a little too quickly. Perhaps then I would have been more suspicious of any ulterior motives. One of them looked at his datapad, appearing to be reading something important, then asked me if 13 years would be acceptable. I said yes, that would be fine. But was there a particular reason for that specific number? The Ostium Network head then smiled, opened his arms as if to say, you caught me, and said yes. By the timetable, my last year would be when the Great Fire of London would take place. If it was amenable to me, they would like to have me place a special monitoring device inside a bakery where it was thought the fire began. This was a new piece of technology that would provide lots of important data on how the fire would spread, what areas would be most affected, and what procedures were conducted to control and limit the fire. They told me at a future date someone would be sent back to retrieve what remained of the device, if anything. After the fire was out, I was to return to the city and enter through a specific door near the Tower of London, and returned to Ostium, and thence to the Ostium Network. I was happy to help the Ostium Network while also being able to satisfy my deepest desires in being there at the grand opening of the British Museum. I was put through rigorous training, much like I'm sure you were, and then travelled to Ostium and back in time to 1653. 10 years sounds like a long time to some, but for me it went by quite fast, I thought. I was able to fit into the culture and clientele of 17th century England with no problem. The Ostium Network had furnished me with enough money so that I could maintain the comfortable societal level of an aristocrat, and it was just grand seeing those rare artifacts discovered and brought to the museum. Before I really knew it, I was in my 13th year and had to begin my preparations for the night of the Great Fire. But I will say, if I am anything, I am a professional, and while I had enjoyed my time at the museum immensely, it was now time for my next duty, which I dispatched with aplomb, I must say. That is, until I pressed the hidden button to activate the device as the Ostium Network head had shown me. The item was disguised as a lantern, should someone discover it before the fire spread, and would in fact light if needed. However, once I'd activated it, it caused a liquid to spray around the room, including covering my person, and then dispatched a flame which caused an instant conflagration. I was beyond shocked, but also terrified, taking a number of steps back, not wanting to get burned or set on fire. Had this been the intention of the Ostium Network? For my body to burn in the fire also? Was I to be simply collateral damage? As the fire quickly spread, I tried to leave, and that was when I saw you, and dashed after you into the street, where it was dark and I could barely see my hand in front of my face. The fire in the bakery had burned, pun very much intended, believe you me, after images on my retina, and so seeing in the dark street was very difficult. Once I saw you were gone and knew not which direction, I just ran, and ran, and ran. I waited days for the fire to diminish and to be put out, as I wished to return to the Ostium Network as soon as possible and to find out what had gone wrong, but the fire kept growing and raging and consuming more of the city until there was nothing left. It was then that I fully realized my way back to my own time had been completely obliterated.